I once heard a great story that showed the power of mercy and the fact that it's actually greater than forgiveness. The story was, imagine that you knew a criminal that was scheduled to be put to death on death row. To boot, he also had terminal cancer, he had no family, and he had a criminal record, would never be able to get a job anyway. This guy's got it pretty tough. But he gets a call from the governor, and the governor says, "Hey, congratulations, you've been freed, pardoned, forgiven of your debt to society." He walks out the front door, the door's open, he walks through, slam, right behind him. He's free, he's forgiven, but he's still gonna die in 6 months. He still has no family, and he still has a criminal record where he's not gonna be able to get a job. Now, imagine this. That same man receives a phone call from that same governor, and the governor says, "Hey, I have given you pardon. You are forgiven of your debt to society. You're free to go." The guy says, "Great." But the governor says, "Hey, on your way out the door, there will also be a limousine waiting. And in that limousine will be a doctor who has found the cure to your terminal cancer. Now, he is going to drive you to my mansion, where there I will adopt you as one of my own children. You'll be part of my family forever, and I will wipe your criminal slate background clean. You will have no record whatsoever. You'll have a clean slate and a job in my administration for life." That is mercy, even greater than forgiveness. You see, it was great that he was forgiven in the first example, but he still had a lot of problems. But in the second example, we see God's mercy. It's mercy greater than forgiveness. And how beautiful is that example? This is why we call it the sacrament of reconciliation and not just the sacrament of forgiveness. It brings us back to God. Just like that in that example, that guy has a family now. He's been forgiven, not just free to go, but he's been given reconciliation. And when we go to the sacrament of reconciliation, God does the same to us. What is mercy? Mercy is loving the unlovable and forgiving the unforgivable. This guy was unlovable. This guy was unforgivable. And so are we. And God gives us that mercy so that he loves us, although we're unlovable, and forgives us, although we are unforgivable. Mercy is actually the greatest form of the greatest virtue, or the greatest mode, if you will, of the greatest virtue. What does that mean? Of all the virtues, and we have many, we have patience, and we have fortitude, and we have justice, and we have hope and faith, and they're all great. But what's the greatest? Love. Love is the greatest of all virtues. Now, is all love the same? No, not all love is the same. In fact, I love Michigan football. I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan. I love, when I can, to watch a couple games a year. But do you think I love football as much as I love my mother? She probably would say yes, but it's of course not. I love my mother in a different way. There's modes of love. The Greeks talked about romantic love, like eros, and filial love, like between a father and a son. But the agape love was the total self-giving, the greatest form of love that was based on giving everything you had. Now, this is what mercy is, because mercy, of all the virtues, if you stacked them all on the table, the highest virtue is love. Now, within love, we have many modes, but the highest mode of love is mercy. And the reason is because mercy is a particular mode of love that when love encounters suffering, it takes action to do something about it. It just doesn't acknowledge it and say, "Gee, I feel bad for you." Love actually takes action to take that suffering upon one's own. Father Kosicki, God rest his soul, used to say mercy is having the pains of another or realizing the pains of another and taking pains to do something about their pain. Now that sounds like a lot of pain, but the thing is you've brought them into your heart, and that's what God does with us in his divine mercy. Their suffering becomes our suffering. We see this like when a parent loses a child. Or when their child is sick. Their child's suffering becomes their suffering. And this is what God does with us in his divine mercy. It's interesting because that is what mercy is. It's healing our misery. People always ask, "Father, well, what does it mean for you personally?" Well, personally for me, it's so powerful that it's our way to get to heaven. Well, wait a minute. Just because God is acknowledging your suffering and wants to help you, well, yeah, because our suffering and our misery is based in sin. And when God has mercy on us, that's wiped away. Yes, we have to do our part. Yes, we have to absolutely turn to Him with a will to try to serve Him and surrender to His will. But He knows we're not perfect. He knows we have flaws. And the beauty of His mercy is that He works with us and He gives us these opportunities to come to Him. I can't shout loud enough from the rooftops that this is the answer to our misery. People are always asking, there's got to be more to life than this pain and this suffering. There is, but we have to turn to Him. Jesus is the divine mercy. He's not just an attribute of God, it is who God is. He is mercy itself. Jesus is the divine mercy. You know what? If you could take the mercy of God the Father, if you could somehow capture it and somehow put it in a visible form, you would have the image of divine mercy. As Pope Francis said in Misericordia Vultus, Jesus is the face of the Father's mercy. This is what divine mercy is. It's Christ incarnate. It is looking and gazing upon His face in the image of divine mercy and seeing the mercy of the Father. So please, as Jesus said, be merciful as your heavenly Father is merciful. How do we do that? We imitate Christ. He is the face of the Father's mercy.